What is going on, FA Nation? My name is Justin Fensterman, along once again with my buddy James Grande, and this is the DFS NBA live stream, an 11-game Friday night slate. Jimmy Grant, how's everything?
It's good, man. It was 13 games, so we might have been live streaming for an hour instead of half an hour, but we have cut it down to 11 due to COVID. And but happy to have these 11 games because there's some interesting games on this slate here, Fensty.
Yeah, the playbook is live on the site, fantasyalarm.com. Sean Mitchell going through the playbook there and writing all the analysis. And we're going to cover some of those players. But before that, let's go over some of the latest injuries because news coming out right and left here. Let's talk about what players aren't going to play. And Grande, feel free to interrupt me if you have any other notes to add on specific players. But out tonight, Kevin Durant, he's getting a rest. Karl Anthony Towns still out. Jason Tatum still out. Christian Wood, that's a big one. He's out and is likely going to be out beyond this game too. Jimmy Butler still out with the COVID. John Wall out with the knee soreness. He's likely to miss a couple more games. Wendell Carter Jr. from your Bulls, Grande, he's out with a thigh injury. Al Horford, birth of a child, he is going to be out still. And then you have the COVIDs from the Mavs. Josh Richardson, Dorian Finney-Smith, Maxi Kleba, and Dwight Powell all out. And then Juan Hernan Gomez also out for the same reason too, Grande. Anything you want to add on that before we go to the questionable tags?
I was gonna add some questionable tags, so no, nothing else.
Okay, then you looked like you wanted to say something, so I just wanted to make sure I wasn't cutting you off or anything like that. So right now, as it stands, questionables and also new statuses that we've gotten. Kyle Lowry, questionable with a foot injury. Pascal Siakam as well with a groin. Tyler Hero with the neck. Miles Turner will actually play, which, I mean, we were talking about this before the stream started. Fracture, and this guy's playing 2 games later. I think that the prognosis might not be as consistent there, Grande.
Yeah, maybe it's the same doctor that hooked Tyrod Taylor up this football season.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, fracture? Seriously? Well, Turner's going to be in. Michael Porter Jr., he'll also play. And he's finally back. So hopefully he's able to stay healthy because he's come back and then he's gone out again. So hopefully this is it because this guy, as we all expected, ready to explode, just got to stay on the court. Darius Garland still questionable with the shoulder. DeAndre Hunter questionable with the knee. Nicholas Batum is also questionable personal. Ricky Rubio dealing with COVID. He's questionable. Danilo Gallinari, who's been out, is questionable with his ankle injury. Cam Reddish, same squad, is questionable. Michael Carter-Williams, questionable. Austin Rivers, questionable. And then here's some interesting ones. Seth Curry, available to play. He's been out with COVID. And then Cody Zeller, he's coming back. And a note that I did see, no restriction. And we talked about Charlotte. There are plenty of big man minutes available for Cody Zeller, not seeing him restricted. Very intriguing with no Carter Jr. on the other side.
Yeah, and he's really cheap. The only problem is there is a specific center that I think you put it, we want to get Boogie with tonight. So it's going to be hard to be like, yeah, I'd rather play Cody Zeller then. And I'll leave you on a cliffhanger there, and we'll get to him later. But
yes, that's called the tease right there. Well, let's start. And by the way, just some updated news and notes. Austin Rivers now officially out. Also, Michael Carter-Williams is still out. He's not ready to return yet as well. So a few more injury notes for you. Let's start with the point guards, though. Not going to go over every single play. You guys can go to fantasyalarm.com to check out Sean Mitchell's playbook for the big slate tonight. But let's start at that point guard spot here and talk about some situations here because we have some injuries in Atlanta that we talked about. Some statuses we still do not know. We have the Kevin Durant situation with him out. So now all of a sudden, Harden and Irving are going to see their usage go up. Or we could go after something like a De'Aaron Fox against the Knicks coming off the back-to-back late night last night for them. Where is your head at?
So obviously I think at the top you can go Luka. I think it's a great spot. The Spurs have been pretty bad. We just saw Steph Curry light them up. So if the Spurs can keep that game competitive, Luka Doncic obviously an elite spend up. But I don't think you need to go there. Trae Young has finally come back to the player we hoped he would have. Just put up 60 fantasy points. Now he's getting one of the best matchups on the board against Minnesota. So I love that spot. I think Kyrie is going to garner a lot of ownership knowing that Kevin Durant's out. And, it's warranted, going up against his old team in Cleveland, no Kevin Durant. I mean, there's obviously a bunch of narratives here. The price tag is good. Just like if you want to be different, you play Trae Young or you play De'Aaron Fox. Kyrie's gonna be the chalk, so you can play it, and I think he's fine for cash. But to be different, you go Trae or De'Aaron Fox off of Kyrie Irving.
How do you feel about Brogdon? I put him in the starting five earlier. I mean, I liked him, of course, better with no Turner, but still, even so, I mean, they're going to be open shots for him, and I always feel like they're open shots for him. What are your thoughts?
I think the spot is pretty good. Cole Anthony is not a great defender. I mean, he's just a volume shooter. Orlando doesn't really have that guy that they can stick on Brogdon. I mean, Aaron Gordon's going to have his hands full with Sabonis. They don't have John Isaac there to defend Brogdon or present any issues. There's really nothing that they can do to stop this guy. And without Oladipo there, I mean, it's going to be a two-man show. We don't know how Miles Turner's offensive game is going to be impacted by this fractured hand. So right now, like, we're just going in with like Malcolm Brogdon, Domantas Sabonis, really condensed usage rate, just them two soaking it all up. So I do like Malcolm Brogdon here in the mid tier. We haven't been getting like the upside we were earlier in the year, but I do think the floor is very safe for Malcolm Brogdon 82. I think he profiles perfectly in cash games.
Yes. By the way, you and I had a very nice conversation. I think we should talk about it for a quick 30 seconds. And we were talking about what we were looking for from our players. And you were more in the, hey, you know, when we're looking at these, we want 6X or better. We want 6X to be the floor. I'm more of a 4 or 5X guy. And I was actually, ever since that conversation, looking into it more. And it's made me become more aggressive, that conversation, rather than trying to find the gems, being more than happy to go after guys that may have a bigger ownership percentage, but still have that chance to get that 7X ceiling. Grande, you opened my eyes a little bit the other night when we spoke.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's important because it's something else we were talking about. Nobody is winning anymore with 8 players at 5X. It's, you know, you can get your 5X guys, but there are guys that you're going to have every winning lineup is 8, 9, 10X. Malcolm Brogdon provides you with the 5X floor at this price, and he has shown near 60-point upside to get you to 7X. So I think Malcolm Brogdon is a very nice cash game play, and I don't think he's actually going to be very highly owned in tournaments tonight, Fancy, personally. Just considering how top-heavy this point guard position is with the likes of Kyrie, with the likes of Luka, with the likes of Trae Young. So I think Malcolm Brogdon is a little sneaky tonight. And I do like that call quite a bit.
Yeah, and again, it's the big key is with the fracture in quotes for Miles Turner, Brogdon should still get more shots anyway. He has been getting a lot of shots. That should continue. Hitting on the value tier of point guard, one of the spots that Sean really likes, that Dallas spot, naturally. A lot of guys still out because of COVID. So, and you know, you mentioned Doncic before. But when you have Doncic there, and he'll often rotate, or the other guard will rotate to that 2 spot, so guys like Burke, Brunson could play. Do you prefer any of those value guys that are essentially going to be on the court a good amount with Doncic, or do you normally just stay away from the other Dallas reserves guards?
I mean, I've definitely played more Jalen Brunson of late, and he's been starting at the shooting guard, and that's fine. He's playing alongside of Luka, and we know Luka's a triple-double threat, so those assists are going somewhere, and Jalen Brunson can shoot. He actually has had a really good start to his year. 50% from the floor, 35 from 3, not too bad across the board there. So I've been leading Jalen Brunson. I kind of like Trey Burke tonight. He's the cheaper option, at least on FanDuel. We're getting a very safe floor in terms of minutes out of Trey Burke, and I think at least we've seen in the past, and we've seen these blow-up games from Burke, I feel like he's a better scorer. So I feel better about Trey Burke's usage rates and shot attempts than I do about Jalen Brunson on a night-to-night basis. Plus, you mentioned about playing alongside Luka. When Luka's off the floor, Burke is playing more with Porzingis and more of the second unit. So he's going to have a lot more of the opportunity and the ball in his hands. So I tonight personally am leaning Trey Burke at 46 on FanDuel, but I think they're both extremely viable options.
Yeah, and again, with what Grande was saying as well, with the attention that Porzingis is going to command when they're both on the floor, defenses will step back and play more inside there, so they can watch Porzingis for cutting. So with that, Burke should be getting some nice high percentage jumpers from long range, so that'll be good. Let's move on to shooting guard, because again, with no Kevin Durant in this game, going up against Cleveland, I mean, we talked about their injuries. They've got some depth issues at guard. So I think that they're going to have their hands full. Colin Sexton and the crew, whoever they can put together. Sexton, Dotson. I mean, dude, it's hard to ignore Harden tonight, right?
Yeah, I mean, I get that, like, James Harden usage rate was the lowest of the big three the last game, but, like, there's no Kevin Durant. And we saw in that game against Milwaukee when there was no Kyrie Irving, I mean, Harden took 25 shots and was just a couple of rebounds shy of a 30-point triple-double. And the game prior to that, where there was no Kyrie Irving, he took 18 shots and he did notch a 30-point triple-double. So whether or not he was this low-usage player the other day against this Cleveland team, there was Kevin Durant. There is no Kevin Durant tonight. This feels like a two-man show, and it's going to be a two-man show, and I'm likely to spend up for Harden before I spend up for Luka. And I didn't think that was going to be the case much this year when they all played together, but without one of the big three, I think that Kyrie and Harden both are just really, really hard to pass on.
This isn't hard to figure out, guys.
Yep.
This team doesn't have depth anymore.
Right.
They just don't. And with that, it's literally, like you said, it's those guys when they're fully healthy. It's those guys with the side of Joe Harris. Right. That's really all they're getting offensively. So if we don't go that direction of Harden, where else are you looking? Because I go back to the starting five video I posted for today. And again, when you look at safe floor options, how do you pass on Victor Oladipo, man? I mean, no Christian Wood, no John Wall. It's just a bunch of guys at this point, and he's going to be far and away the priority. So is the price point too rich for you? Are you worried about ownership? How do you feel about Depot?
I'm not really worried about any of those things, Fancy, and I think Oladipo is in a prime spot, and whether he's missing shots or not, he's taking them. I mean, he's taken 55 or 45 shots the last two games, and that's noteworthy. Like, the usage rate is sky high, over 38% since starting his time with the Rockets. I mean, you take away Christian Wood from that equation, and the shot. I mean, yes, DeMarcus Cousins is starting officially, but he hasn't played an extensive amount of minutes this year. So when he's not able to play 30 minutes, I mean, it's the Oladipo show. He's going to take another 20-plus shots as long as this game stays competitive. And the price point doesn't stay away from me because, I mean, look, earlier in the year with Indiana, all we were missing were the made shots. He was peripherally so sound. He's been contributing 5+ rebounds and almost 5 assists a game. He's great in the lanes in terms of stealing passes. He does everything. We were just waiting for the shot attempts to fall. They are, and at least, you know, they're a lot of them. So it doesn't scare me at this price, and the matchup is good. So I'm all in on Victor Oladipo tonight for cash, for tournaments, for whatever format you want.
And if you need any more of a sales pitch, the guy's going to be bringing up the ball a lot of the game.
Starting point guard.
Those assists are going up, man. Mm-hmm. 5 to 7 assists. I like that for him tonight. And that's what's going to continue. He'd already been contributing, like you mentioned, but that's why with Oladipo, you got to look for the opportunity, and he's in a different situation now. He goes from being on a very deep Pacer team to this very light in depth, I don't want to say pathetic because they did sign Christian Wood, very smart, but very light in depth Rockets team. So that's why I put him in, because I'll say this, Grande, I was debating, go back and forth between Terry Rozier and Victor Oladipo for that shooting guard spot. And I was Rozier at first, and then I said, like I said to you, I just couldn't ignore Oladipo. So with that, I want to ask you how you feel about the Charlotte guards tonight.
I mean, the Bulls' backcourt is not good defensively, as well as they've played offensively, and they've definitely taken strides there. I mean, obviously, Zach LaVine has scored the 4th most points actual points in basketball this year. So like as well as they have played offensively, they rank either 29th or 30th against point guard or shooting guard. So whatever position you want to play against them, I mean, we just saw a ceiling game out of Devontae Graham. Terry Rozier has given us 39 plus fantasy points in 2 straight. LaMelo Ball needs 25 minutes to get us 50 fantasy points in a triple-double. So I don't think there's a wrong answer. I, too, would lean Rozier of the 3. I would probably rank them Rozier, Graham, Ball. And it's not because I don't like LaMelo Ball. I think LaMelo Ball has the most upside of the 3, but he is the least likely to play 30-plus minutes. So I would lean the other 2 because I know they're going to be on the floor.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a good opportunity for them, and that's why Rozier, who is in the playbook, I also really liked him, and I almost plugged him in that starting 5 video. Any other shooting guards you like at value before we move on to the 3s?
I mean, I think the Atlanta news is very important for Kevin Huerter's status now that he's not 9.5K. I mean, he's really good when he's making his shots, and we just saw him score 40-plus fantasy points against us in the same matchup. Again, one of the best matchups on the board. If this could be the best game of the night.
Why would they drop the price point on him then?
It's a fair point. You're gonna have to take that up with the DraftKings brass, where we might riot if he's not 9.5K next slate. I'm interested to see what the Knicks do because I see Alec Burks here, and he looked damn good last night in his return. Thibodeau is clearly not afraid to play anyone ever, returning from injury, not returning from injury, back to back, not back to back. He's just going to play these guys minutes. Because we had the Kings the last time we did this live stream on Wednesday, and we alluded to how bad they were defensively. Obviously, that hasn't changed in 2 days. So the Knicks, coming off an absolute dismantling of the Warriors, who had been playing very well in Golden State, now get to play the Kings, who are even worse defensively. So I think Alec Burks is really interesting, but it's not something that we've thought about, I think, throughout the day. But will Alec Burks play on the second leg of a back-to-back, just considering he was out for, I mean, a pretty extended period of time? I guess there hasn't been any note on Alec Burks not playing.
Hasn't, but an indicator for us, Grande, is that no Austin Rivers. So that takes one guard out of the mix. And him already being a reserve, that can give him more minutes off the bench if they decide to bring him in from that.
5,100 is a really enticing price tag, just considering, like, it doesn't matter if the Knicks aren't a back-to-back. The Kings are that poor defensively. Like, there's just open lanes, open shots to be had all night long.
And the Knicks offense runs much smoother with Alec Burks in there as well.
True.
I mean, you saw once he went out, they started struggling. They went on a losing streak as soon as he went out. And he's been a very reliable shooter, good distance shooter. Also plays tremendous defense as well. So you may get some of those stats from a bonus standpoint too, Grande. So 5,100 especially, I like that, man. Let's move on.
Let's see some lineup news.
Yes, sir.
Darius Garland. So we expected to play. So we'll get the full minutes out of Sexland tonight. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on Sexland?
I mean, he's had the 40-point performance before. And also, let's talk about this. When it comes to this Cavs team, they're still pretty raw as a whole when it comes to who is a multidimensional player. You have Cedi Osman, who sits there at the arc, although he's been much better overall this year. I will say that. And the price tag is showing it. But if you look at the big men, I mean, yeah, Nance can shoot a little bit, but they're all low block guys. And so I still think Sexton is a good option. I don't think Sexton's going away. I still think you're going to be locking him in for at least 20 points per game. Now, the ceiling, which I know you want to know for tonight, with Garland in there, I don't like it as much, man. Messes with that ceiling to me, so I might have to be a spectator.
Yeah, I think all of Cleveland, at least the guards, including Cedi with Garland back, just is makes me very disinterested here in this particular spot because Cedi has been playing well. Not a spot I want to go to. Not going to play Garland after missing all that time. And Garland has been good offensively, as you mentioned. Not going to play Sexton. I think if I were to play someone, it would be Sexton. Also, Spency, more news rolling through the wire here. Kyle Lowry officially out. Pascal Siakam will play. So we get Lowry out. Siakam in. And the last time we saw this, because we saw Kyle Lowry sit out, I think a week or two ago, random personal reason, Norman Powell started, and officially Norman Powell will start. So
Wow.
so the news is Norman Powell in the starting lineup tonight for the injured Kyle Lowry.
So no Lowry, but yes to Siakam. Norman Powell is going to get that bump there, and he's getting the starting nod too, Grande. Any more news before we go to the threes, dude?
No, but Norman Powell, shooting guard on FanDuel, shooting guard, small forward on DraftKings. I think he's firmly in play against a beat-up Miami team, and also I think Terrence Davis. I think we'd be remiss not to mention he sees time anytime this happens where they are lacking. They're down one guard. Terrence Davis generally plays 20, 24 minutes, and he shoots a lot when he gets the time. So Terrence Davis coming off a 16 actual point game, 31 fantasy points, really free across the industry. So I think in a tournament, I think Terrence Davis could also be an option here.
Yeah, this is what happens when the news comes out. The strategy changes a little bit, but also more opportunity could present itself as well during this time. Right. I asked John and Pemba this question the other night, and now I'm going to ask you this. How much is too much for Jeremy Grant at this point?
I don't have an answer to that question because I don't think that like you can pay this price and feel good about it because he's just so safe. And you want to talk about safety and you want to talk about ceiling, you want to talk about that floor ceiling combination that you're looking for. I mean, let's rattle off the last three, Fancy. 47, 43, good floor, 57 ceiling. So that right there is exactly what you want out of your guy. He's great defensively. He is locking up the Most Improved Player of the Year award, and not even close is second place. 25 points again. I mean, fine. All formats, Jeremy Grant tournament, and we get a terrible Houston defense on top as the cherry on top.
They're still awful, still bad, Houston.
Still terrible.
Yes, I mean, there are not that many scorers in Detroit. This is going to keep happening. And that's why we have to keep hitting it. And yeah, I mean, Jeremy Grant's taking full advantage because there's a lot of youth and inexperience now in Detroit. That's the direction they're heading right now. So I can only imagine when Blake Griffin is out, even a little bit later in the season, just what this guy's going to do when he has virtually the entire offense to himself, besides Derrick Rose when he decides to play. Other threes that you're interested in tonight, Grande? I mean, I'll bring up someone that was in my starting five video. It's coming off the back-to-back, but it is Sacramento. And with that strategy we talked about before, I don't know how you don't go after R.J. Barrett. I mean, he's been excellent. He's not just a scorer. He's grabbing over 7 boards per game. He'll grab steals as well. He's been excellent at driving. And against this Kings team that can barely plant their feet with their backs to the basket, this is a great spot to him, even coming off the game last night.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note the ownership projections that we have on R.J. Barrett, and we just alluded to it when we were talking about Alec Burks. The Kings' defense is terrible. Please, if you're playing multiple lineups and you don't want R.J. Barrett to be in your primary lineup, fine. But if you're playing multiple lineups, I think you have to get this guy in if he's going to be this low owned against this bad of a defense, playing this well, playing this many minutes. He has played 50 more minutes than any other player in the NBA. Him and Julius Randle have played the most minutes in the NBA. A full game more. You know Thibodeau is going to leave him on the floor. He's going to play you 40, even in a blowout. Doesn't matter. R.J. Barrett. Tyler Hero. Fancy, we're just getting all the news. Tyler Hero officially ruled out. And he's actually been ruled out for the next 3 games.
I'm not surprised about that. I was going to tell you that I wouldn't be surprised if he's out longer. He's got something going on back there, man, because they've been toggling with him being it's a neck injury or it's back spasms. Right. He might have something spinal going on that he might have to get checked out further.
That would be horrible because.
So what do you think? What do you think? Kendrick Nunn or Nunn?
Oh yeah. Right back to the well with Nunn. Yes. He's 5,400 on DK. Probably can get away with not playing him on FanDuel where he's 62. But I still think he's viable there, given the minutes and the production. But 54 on FanDuel or in DraftKings rather, you play him in cash and you move on.
Who would you rather spend on? Because now on these teams we've got guys out. Anunoby or Eric Gordon? Eric Gordon, obviously the cheaper option of the two.
I think if you want to be different, you play OG. I don't think people play OG very often, and I think when his shot is falling, you have a good game, and that's been happening lately. I mean, we know he gets peripheral stats. He's a good rebounder. He's good defensively. So I think OG to be different. Eric Gordon more in the cash game feel for me at 5,700. So that's kind of how I'd break it down. OG for tournaments, Eric Gordon for cash.
Let's move on to the big men, power forwards here, because again, Julius Randle, we talked about this with the Knicks. Julius Randle has been a mega multi-category producer to start the year. However, we'll have to say this too, with the Mavs still dealing with their COVID issues and LaMarcus Aldridge looking like he's aged about 50 years in the last 4 months. I know we're in the 8K range now, but we don't have to worry about soreness or injuries or minutes restrictions. I almost feel like I'd rather pay for Porzingis.
Yeah, me too. Especially in tournament and especially on FanDuel where that age could play a factor if he can't elevate and Porzingis could block 4 shots of Aldridge just tonight, honestly. And we're getting 30-plus minutes. The guy is so good, Fensty. He's so good. He's still too cheap. He should be over 9K, and until that time, I'm not thinking about it. I'm just plug and playing Kristaps Porzingis. Until he's 9K, he's 84 on FanDuel. He's 81 on DraftKings. Like, come on, just play him and move on.
Now, someone that you and I agree upon tonight, this guy was in my video, and I just, again, love the matchup. I don't care that Cody Zeller is back in or not. Lowry Markkanen. And here's the reason why. Last year, I was getting so frustrated with the amount of time he was spending at the arc. This year, I'm not seeing that as much. This year, I'm seeing him attack a little bit more. And with no Carter and hardly any depth inside, not much depth at all, he's forced, man. He's forced to set up in the post. And I said this in the video, because he's going to be at that spot more than the arc, it's going to give him more opportunities to grab boards.
Yeah, last year was weird. And I've alluded to this before with you and a bunch of other people. I really, really, really believe that Jim Boylan was the primary reason to all the problems the Bulls had. And I'm not saying that they're like this perfect team with Billy Donovan, but there is a clear difference in the team and the way it's flowing and the way the offense is moving with Billy Donovan at the helm. And primarily Lowry Markkanen, who in an 80-minute sample without Wendell Carter has a 27% usage. He's averaging 1.3 fantasy points per minute. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that, like you just said, he's grabbing more rebounds. He's not just relying on the scoring. And, since he's been back 32-plus minutes, he's grabbed 6-plus rebounds. He has 16-plus points. He's really contributing across the board. And I think this price tag is one that we can get there's upside potential. I think there's 40-point upside here against a Charlotte front court that ranks 29th or worse against power forwards and centers, which, they could see. I could see a scenario where, like, Daniel Gafford plays 20 minutes at center, but Markkanen sees some time at center tonight. Just, I guess, especially given how many, like, these hybrid 3-4s the Bulls have, like Otto Porter and Thaddeus Young, and they have all these, like, similar type players. Well, you could stretch Lowry to center tonight against Cody Zeller. I think that presents a big matchup issue for Charlotte and Markkanen. I think this could be one of those special games where we get 40. There's like a 45 point ceiling in terms of fantasy points.
Any other values you like at power forwards before we spend a few minutes on the center position?
Jeff Green's been good, man, and he's playing 40 minutes, and that's what it is. Like, the opportunity is there for Jeff Green more than anything. And you mentioned earlier they don't have depth, so Jeff Green's going to play 40 with no Kevin Durant. I mean, him and DeAndre are going to be thrusted into big minutes here.
Yeah, I just saw a piece of news that Nick Claxton is now going to be out for another month.
Right. Well, they did sign Norval Peel today.
Yeah, I saw.
So he's not going to matter tonight, but like going forward, a little depth, some sort of depth that they'll have.
That's like the $3,500 player that in a week from now is going to win someone $100,000.
Right. Oh God, if Normal Peel ever wins, I'll send you $100. Never mind. Let's not go there. Isaiah Roby as well. Al Horford still out. You mentioned it, and I think Isaiah Roby has a pretty safe 25 fantasy point floor. He hasn't really flashed this crazy upside, but as long as he stays out of foul trouble, there's appeal. And also, I think it's interesting to note if Nicholas Batum is ruled out. I have been all over Marcus Morris lately, and he didn't look great that last game, but the minutes looked good. 26 minutes. If there's no Batum, maybe those 26 are stretched to 30. Maybe we get a start out of Marcus Morris. And OKC, as I just mentioned, starting a foul-happy Isaiah Roby in the front court alongside Darius Bazley. So I think Marcus Morris could be interesting if you have late swap available to you because you have someone in your power forward spot. I think Marcus Morris could be intriguing in tournaments.
Yeah, one of the best three-point shooters from last season, so don't forget about that. Let's move on to center here because when it comes to Joel Embiid, I mean, you can't really ask for a better matchup. He's destroyed it. I mean, even if it's a $10K price point, I don't see how he doesn't have success. What do the Celtics have to offer? They're better off throwing John and Pemba out there.
That's a toss-up. Yeah, they probably are. I mean, Tristan Thompson and John are probably the same height anyway. So, I mean, and you know what, Fency? The funny part about it is Joel Embiid's coming off this monster game against Boston, and nobody's going to play him. Nobody's going to play him because everyone wants to spend up on Luka. Everyone wants to go get the Brooklyn guys. No one's going to play Embiid, and everyone wants to spend down. Well, if you're playing FanDuel, we're going to get to him, but everyone's going to play blank. We'll get there. This has been a tease circling back to the beginning. But there's a value guy that everyone's going to go to, and everyone's going to look at Nikola Jokic and say, man, Nikola Jokic 70-point upside every time he touches the floor because he's a triple-double machine. Well, Joel Embiid is the guy coming off 42 and 10 against this same exact Boston front court, and no one's going to play him. So I think in tournaments, I'm definitely interested in Joel Embiid. Again, he's going to be sub 10% ownership, and that's how you win tournaments, Fency.
Why though? But I don't
disagree.
Explain why. You explain why. It doesn't make sense. Boston's front court sucks. They hardly have a front court. Even when you want to put Jason Tatum back in there, they hardly still have a front court. They can't size up against these bigger teams.
You're everything that we're both saying is accurate, right? And it just comes down to where people are allocating their funds. People are going to spend up on Harden. You can't get Embiid. People are going to spend up on Kyrie or Trae Young. It's going to be hard to fit Embiid with the lack of really, really dirt cheap value. Then you look at the position. We have Bam, 8,600 playing without Jimmy Butler, hero. I think he's going to be popular. We have Clint Capella, who again just destroyed Detroit, absolutely demolished them. And you were completely on that play through and through on Wednesday's live stream. 26 rebounds, 27 points. The guy is going berserk. And now Minnesota ranks dead last against centers. You could play Porzingis at center. You could play John Collins, who had a good game at center. You could play Chris Boucher at all these guys before we even get to our value play of the day. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Is why your people aren't going to play Joel Embiid because they feel like they can get 50, 60-point upside like Embiid gave them at a cheaper price, when in actuality, Joel Embiid's more likely to do it more consistently because he's the best player of all of those guys. So I agree, but all those options below him, just people are licking their chops to get a piece of because they can save money.
So for the projection for Joel Embiid, seeing on DraftKings 7.96. Now we get to a guy whose projected ownership will be 56.85%. We've been teasing it all show in Grande. I'm not going to steal your thunder. Who might it be?
No, it's your thunder. He's the cover of your starting five video.
We got to boogie on down for DeMarcus Cousins. Okay, here's the thing. It comes with a little bit of a risk attached to it. We haven't seen him play heavy minutes. Last time he played over 20, he grabbed 14 boards.
No.
This is a guy who throughout his career doesn't need a lot of minutes to fill up that stat sheet. Doesn't even need a lot of shot attempts as well because he's going to grab boards. Will he get the minutes? Can he please play 25? That's all I'm asking. 25 minutes from this guy. They don't have much else when it comes to depth in Houston. They don't have Christian Wood. Can he please play 25 minutes, Grande?
I mean, I hope so. And we just have this, just don't get thrown out of this game. Don't yell at your teammates like Draymond did last night and get thrown out. Don't yell at your coaches. Don't yell at anyone. Just
he has a problem with that.
I know, and that's obviously the scary part of playing DeMarcus Cousins because on one hand, we want the minutes. On another hand, it's like there's a devil and there's an angel, right? The angel is saying, all we need is 25 minutes. He's starting. He's a fantasy point per minute monster. 1.4 fantasy points per minute this year. The devil is saying, well, he might not get 25 minutes. He could pick up 4 fouls in the first half, and then he might get thrown out before he comes out of the tunnel. So
you're forgetting one other thing too. They have a back-to-back, and that's a problem. That's a problem. That's why that minute ceiling is lowered. They're going to need him in both games.
All right, so Fency, tonight, then here's my question to you. There's 56% of the field on DraftKings playing DeMarcus Cousins. You are building one tournament lineup. In cash games, you play him because you're not losing anything against the field. He's going to be 80% owned in cash. In tournament, in a 100,000-person tournament, would you fade DeMarcus Cousins at that ownership?
Yes, because like I said, I'm going after Joel Embiid. I'm going to be that guy. I've loved attacking Boston's front court for the last few years now, and they haven't done much at all to help that cause. And Joel Embiid's one of the most productive centers in the league, one of the biggest bodies in the league. Who you need to tell me Tristan Thompson's going to get him out of that lane? Get out of here. He is going to go off. It's going to be good. And with that, I almost feel safer because, like I said, the fact that I had to say DeMarcus Cousins at sub 5K with no Christian Wood still brings risk to it. I'll play it safer and I'll go after Embiid. Would you pick the same decision?
It's a toss-up. I like a lot of centers on this slate, so I could see myself not playing him. Will I fade him? Probably not.
We'll have to see. We'll have to see. And that's your decision out there. You're going to spend up for Embiid in a solid matchup or Cousins with the opportunity, but we don't know what the length of the leash is. You can follow James Grande on Twitter at @the_real_Grande. You can follow me on Twitter at Fensty Sports. For Grande and Fensty, hey, we always dominate. No other options. Just like you're going to dominate tonight. Go to the site, get on the chat, get the help you need because like a family, we all stick together. We win together.